Hey everybody, trying a new live angle. Hi Shannon. Hey everyone, come on in. We have a lot to talk about today. Hi. We have so much to talk about. And while a lot of it can feel very grim, I actually feel, well, I said this last week too, but I'm going to say it again. I feel weirdly optimistic. Not optimistic. It's a terrible time to say that. Let me talk to you a little bit about why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling right now. Hi, YouTube. Hi, Facebook. Hi, TikTok. I hope that this looks okay to everybody. I'm trying a new camera setup. So I'm just going to launch right into it. I mean, it's been another completely insane week, of course. We've had lots of horrific things happening. I have particular concerns about what's happening to immigrant children with this administration. And you really have to be so low to pick on children. I mean, you just have to be morally vacant to decide that the people you're going to go after are little, not fully grown, you know, immigrant children. And yet we're seeing that repeatedly this week. We saw it in Chicago where ICE came and did a big sort of photo op raid and raided a building, pulled a bunch of people out of the building in the middle of the night or the early morning. I'm not clear on exactly when it happened, but it was cold. Some of them were naked. They knocked down a bunch of doors, dragged people out, and left them out there either on the street or in vans for hours, some of whom were US citizens, including some of the children. So they've got children and they've got people who have no idea why they're being detained. Imagine, if you will, sleeping in the middle of the night and having someone break down your door, drag you out of your bed, drag your children out of their beds. Maybe you're naked. Maybe you're wearing a t-shirt. Drag you outside, huge guns, huge shields, masks over their faces. This should never be happening in this country. It is, and I know we all know this, like if you're here, you probably know this, but I really think it's important to continue to repeat that this is not normal, that this is not the way it is supposed to be in the United States, that people's civil liberties and their basic human rights are being violated. And I'm going to say right now that ICE is committing crimes against humanity. And that in a just world, which we are going to continue to fight for, they are going to be held accountable, not just here, but possibly on a world stage. These things are unconscionable. So it's not just that, but I also posted a video on my feed on Instagram this morning. You can go watch it if you haven't, of another creator. Oh God, truly hysterical, something hysterical is her. Is that true, Lily Moon, that Nike has been distributing face masks to ICE? I have to check that out. That seems outrageous if true. But they have been, again, they've got a whole sort of project right now they're calling Freaky Friday, which I find so just again like chilling the sort of cavalier nature of their, what they call their campaigns, as if it's funny, it's based on a movie, that they're targeting immigrant children between 14 and 18. And you've probably all heard about this by now, but again, they're sort of coming after them. They're mentally torturing them, they're detaining them, they are threatening that they either should take money from them, $2,500, and leave the country unaccompanied, or they're going to deport their parents. Like, again, I have a 15-year-old, so it's very easy to keep this abstract because it's less painful to contemplate, right? So the abstraction of like, oh, 14 and 15-year-olds and 16-year-old immigrant children, but imagine your child. Or imagine if you don't have a child, you may be very young yourself, but imagine a 14-year-old you love, whether that's a niece, a nephew, brother, sister, you. Again, this is incomprehensible cruelty, and it can't stand. So that's the really grim part of this right now. There's a lot of grimness. So we've got that going on, and ICE just acting with what seems to be total impunity. And it is, for now, it is impunity. It will not always be. It will not always be. And that's what I want you to remember. They will pay for this in a court of law. I will spend the rest of my life making sure they do. And lots of other people will also. So, these kinds of governments, this kind of abuse, it doesn't go on forever. At some point, look at the Nuremberg trials, people get held accountable. And every single person who is working for ICE right now should know and understand that. They obviously don't. They're taking the paycheck right now because, ICE is going to prey on people who are desperate for money and who are, for whatever reason, willing to participate in this kind of abuse. They're not thinking long term. So that's that. We also have right now day 3 government shutdown, and I called this episode, what ACA healthcare death spiral. Question mark. And the reason I call it that, you got to make these YouTube thumbnails. I'm not really crazy about it, but seriously, we're entering a really interesting moment here, and I'm going to end on a really hopeful note. So stay with me, okay? So hopeful, with caveats. You can't hopeful with the understanding that like people are suffering. So we're not like Pollyanna here, but so we're on day 3 of the shutdown, and here's what I find really encouraging is that Republicans who generally, they're good. They're winning on the messaging, right? They know how to do that. They go out, they all have the same message. And as much as everybody gave places like Chorus a lot of shit a few months ago, Chorus and a bunch of other things like it are the reason that Democrats this time are not losing the messaging war. It's not just Chorus, it's not just content creators, but I will say that we are seeing a unified response, and that what it looks like to me, and I'm not alone because I'm looking at polling, I'm looking at a bunch of different pundits, is that Democrats are actually, and the Wall Street Journal said this today, they're like, publicly Republicans have a lot of bravado, but privately they're worried. They understand this is an absolutely losing argument for them. Why? For the simple reason that they are wrong. There's no way to spin what they're doing. As I've said in my video, and I'm sorry if you saw my video earlier today because I'm going to repeat the line I said there, but you can't give the wealthiest people in the country and the biggest corporation, again, we're talking the Exxon Mobils, the United Healthcares, the, Pfizer's, massive tax giveaways. We are talking for rich people, millions of dollars, for corporations, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks at the same time that you say we can't afford to give working Americans and impoverished Americans. And again, the Affordable Care Act, like 90% of it, this is not like anything, this is the fact. 90% of it goes to participants who make $68,000 a year or less. Anyone trying to live on $68,000 a year knows that is barely scraping by, right? So you got them giving these tax giveaways to people who are, it's obscene wealth what they have, more money than any person could ever spend. And then over here in the same breath saying, oh, well, we can't afford to spend that, $330 billion. It's outrageous, our deficit, right? So if you hear a Republican saying that, I'm going to curse, cover your ears if you don't like it. It's total and complete bullshit, and it should be called out, right? They just passed a bill that gives these tax cuts to rich people and adds $4 trillion to the deficit. Now, remember, Donald Trump, first term, his rich people tax cuts then added $8 trillion to the deficit. Well, all told, everything he did in his first term, a quarter of our current national debt was created under Donald Trump's first term. Don't believe me? Google it. Massively high debt under that president, some of the highest debt any president has ever created, especially when we weren't at war. So now they're set up to do it again. So they've rushed through because these tax cuts were going to expire in December. I'm talking about the rich people tax cuts. They're going to expire in December. We can't let that happen. So they rushed this through, right? This bill, the big bullshit bill act. They rushed it through. But guess what else is expiring in December? The Affordable Care Act premiums. Those, they're not rushing. And there's no sense of urgency. And as I've mentioned in other videos, the funny math that they used tricky math to pass their rich people tax cuts and pretend it wasn't adding to the deficit. Now, if you guys want, I can explain to you how that worked. It's wonky, but I do understand it. Let me know if you want me to explain it. It's called the current policy baseline. It's a lie. It's basically, I'll give you an example. They basically said, well, let's imagine that last year I went on a really expensive vacation. I spent $100,000 on vacation last year. Pretend, okay? So that means that I can spend $100,000 on vacation every year and it's free because I did it last year. So that's kind of what they did with the rich people tax cuts. So they were willing to do funny accounting to get those tax cuts through to add the $3 to $4 trillion to our deficit with great urgency. But when it comes to extending these healthcare premiums that are literally going to save lives, no, 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 that would be irresponsible for our deficit. Like, are you kidding me? So they know that that argument is really weak. So, as we've seen, they have been trotting out one lie over and over and over again, right? Oh, the Democrats want to give healthcare, full health care to what they call illegal aliens. It's a phrase, obviously, I don't like, undocumented immigrants. So this is a lie. It's not a falsehood. It's not misleading. It's not, as the mainstream media likes to put it, it's not of dubious authenticity. It's a lie. That is a lie. Democrats are not asking to give federal health care to undocumented people because that's against the law, and it has been since 1996. And so, fortunately, we're seeing journalists do their job a little bit this time. We've seen journalists asking in the press room, like, why are you guys saying that Democrats want to do this when we've read the bill? And we also know that by law, you can't give federal, the Affordable Care Act uh, subsidies. You can't give Medicare. You can't give children's health insurance, any of it. You can't give Medicaid, except in one tiny percent. It's 1% of Medicaid funding goes to emergency care for undocumented people because the hospitals otherwise don't get paid. That's it. It's less than 1% of Medicaid. So that's it. And what they're talking about, what they've spun, is that in the big BS Bill Act, Republicans added into that bill that people who have been able to access some federal healthcare policies, namely Dreamers, DACA recipients, right? TPS recipients, people who have come here because they're in danger of dying in other countries and who have been granted special clemency to come here, they have been able to access some healthcare benefits. Republicans voted to take all of that away from them. So, what Democrats have done this time in their letter saying what their demands were is they want to reverse that. They basically want to get Dreamers back their healthcare. But Republicans have taken that tiny grain of truth and they've spun it in a weave, weaving it with a lot of lies, as they do, into Democrats want to give every undocumented person full health care, which, as I like to joke, is really funny because nobody in this country has full health care for free. Like, sign me up. Where do you get that? That's not a thing. So the great news is they are lying and it's not working. It's not working, and we've seen the polling. We saw a whole bunch of polling this morning that Americans are very clear. No, no, no. This is a Republican thing. We see what you're doing, and this is a Republican generated shutdown. And not only is the blame game not going their way, but vast majorities of Americans, I think this morning it was at 81% of Americans, including lots of MAGA Republicans and non MAGA Republicans, want these tax credits extended. Why? Because they're using them. Did you know that 25% of farmers, ranchers, and other, small business owners living in rural areas are on the Affordable Care Act, right? Lots and lots of people who are MAGA Republicans are on the Affordable Care Act because if you don't work for a giant corporation and get employer health care, what else do you do if you don't qualify for Medicaid? And by the way, Republicans are kicking all kinds of people off of Medicaid, right? And if you are not old enough or you don't have a disability, you can't get Medicare. What do you do? When my husband was between jobs last year, we went and got healthcare on the exchange. By the way, it wasn't super cheap, but for people who are at a certain income level, right now, they're able to get healthcare for a very fair amount of money, sometimes $10 a month, right? That is going to go away. So it's a they can't spin it. And what we're watching in real time is them trying to spin it and just not really succeeding because enough people are calling them out on their bullshit, because some journalists are actually doing their jobs, and because content creators are talking about it, other independent media are talking about it. There's a lot of different sources. And this is where I want you guys to derive some hope. Remember, and I love to quote Jamel Bowie because he made such a great video about this. You should follow him if you're not. He's amazing, brilliant guy. Is that if we were living in a true authoritarian state right now, I'm not saying that there is not authoritarian breakthrough and attempts at authoritarianism, but people like me would not be here right now talking to you about what is actually happening with healthcare, right? Jimmy Kimmel would still be off the air. John Oliver would not be able to make the shows that he makes, and V would not be making Under the Desk, and um, uh, you know, everybody else would not be doing what they're doing, and Mother Jones would be shut down, and Popular Information would be shut down, and all the great journalists doing amazing work would be shut down. But we're not there yet, and that's why, as much as people like to go, "Oh my God, we're fucked, it's over," we're not fucked, and it's not over. It is really hard, and it's bad, and it's serious, but America has been in bad and serious before. And we still have our freedom of speech. And in fact, last week we proved that we will fight for it. And the fact that they back down is huge, right? In fact, lots of people, including Paul Krugman, who I was reading right before I came on, really think that the Jimmy Kimmel moment was a turning point. That was a moment where people started to realize something. And here's where we're getting to the really hopeful part, which is that Trump is not as powerful as he pretends to be at all. And he's the little man behind the curtain pulling the, levers to make himself seem like the great and powerful Oz. But the truth of the matter is, he actually lacks all kinds of powers. The courts have stopped him over and over again. Some corporations have stood up to him, not many, but lots of American citizens have stood up to him. Some American institutions have stood up to him. We don't hear about that as much because he really likes to highlight when organizations or schools or law firms bend the knee to him, and way too many have. But look at the Super Bowl having Bad Bunny on. We have all of these examples of institutions quietly and almost subversively pushing back. And I am telling you that people are starting to detect his weakness. And here's why he's so weak. First of all, he's obviously in severe cognitive decline. Like, this is just obvious to anybody who's not a full cult member. So he's in cognitive decline and has been for a while, but it's becoming really clear. More importantly, he is failing on the economy. And this is something that we want to keep talking about because it's true. Prices are skyrocketing. The healthcare crisis is about to possibly go to a place that is existentially dangerous for the entire healthcare system. And I'm not celebrating that, but that's what Trump is creating. Um, so electricity bills, insane. I don't know if any of you have gotten like a 10 to 30% increase in your bills, but that's what's starting to happen. Housing, insane, right? Groceries, food, insane. Farmers, very unhappy because Trump has literally used his tariffs to create a situation where farmers have just been screwed. They've been screwed. And what Trump is doing in response is what Trump always does. Throw a sack of money at the peasants over there. Throw them a sack of money and then get back in your carriage and ride off to your castle. So he's like, we'll help them out. So they want to give farmers like a one-time subsidy, which lots of people have very mixed feelings about because these farmers voted for Trump and they should have known what he was going to do, right? But I try to be forgiving. So, okay, they're going to give him a subsidy, by the way, paid for by us, by you. When you go and you buy that cup of coffee and you're like, holy shit, that's expensive. That's your money going to farmers who can't sell their soybean crops and so are leaving them to rot in the fields. You, with your cup of coffee, are getting a side of rotting, unusable soybeans. Congratulations, you're paying for it. Trump, He's not. He is not. So Trump is going to throw the peasants a little bag of cash, but the problem is that this is systemic. First of all, farmers don't want a subsidy. They want to sell their crops. And they're used to selling their crops because they have always sold, especially their soybeans, to China, right? Last year, $12.6 billion in sales. And that's been sort of the way it's been. And you've probably seen the chart. We've all seen the chart. It has fallen off of a cliff this year. Virtually no sales to China. And this is pretty straightforward. China, Trump put these punitive tariffs on them and it was way up here and then it came down a bit and then it was here, but it goes back and forth. And China was like, you know what? Like, we can get our soybeans elsewhere. So screw you. And now they're getting them from Argentina and Brazil. And will they ever come back? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the damage Trump has done is permanent. But what did Trump do? So first this happens, and then he turns around and gets fully played again. Argentina comes to him and says, we need some money, we need a bailout. And because Trump is, basically crushes out on strongmen, like I think he genuinely gets a crush on them. So Argentina has a strongman leader. Trump likes him. He wants him to respect him. So he gives him $20 billion of taxpayer money. Again, your money. Gives it not to the farmers, but to Argentina, who is already cleaning our clock in terms of buying crops from China. But then it gets worse. Then Argentina turns around and says, now that we have this money, we can lower our tariffs so China will buy more soybeans from us. And that is what China did. Now, you may have all seen the screenshot of the text message that Brooke Rollins, who is our agricultural secretary, sent to Scott Bessent saying, we just fucking played right into China's hands. Trump just got played by China. Now, of course, they'll deny that, but we saw the text message. And he did. He's not a smart guy and he's not a good negotiator. So here is our situation. And I return to my larger point. He's failing on the economy. The jobs reports we're not seeing right now because the government is shut down, but everybody knows it's been catastrophic and getting worse every month, right? Inflation numbers are ticking up. Consumer confidence is cratering. Home sales are more expensive. Everything is more expensive. Utility bills are going through the roof. We're about to enter what could be an insurance death spiral. I'm going to explain that to you. So here's the reason we can be hopeful, is that Trump understands he is deeply, deeply unpopular. And if you look at his approval ratings, they're tanking. He has a base that is, again, these are cult members. So cult members don't leave their cult leader. They just don't, right? You've seen the Netflix documentaries about people in a cult. Like maybe one figures it out. The majority of them don't. And a lot of them live the rest of their lives in a really sad state of delusion. And there's not much you can do about it unless you have a family who can hire like a cult, specialist. So they're going to stay with him. But the rest of the country is really unhappy. And not only are they really unhappy, it's not that his approval rating is low only, it's that his disapproval rating, the intensity with which the majority of Americans now actively dislike him, is unprecedented. Now, you may say, why does all this matter? He doesn't care if he's popular or not. Well, first of all, yes, he does. He cares deeply. He's a narcissist. He desperately wants to be popular. That's why he keeps lying and saying he's got high approval ratings, because he thinks if he says it enough, it'll become true. Why would he lie if he didn't care? He cares deeply. But second of all, and I've talked about this before, but I just saw this again in a piece I just read before I came on. Thank you, Pragmatic Crystal. Is that successful authoritarians are authoritarians who they consolidate their power during a period when they are popular, when people love them and think they're doing great work, especially on the economy. So when we look at other authoritarians, contemporary authoritarians, especially Vladimir Putin, we see people who were really, really popular, like 10 points above water on popularity while their consolidation of power was happening. That is not the case with Donald Trump. He is underwater on every single metric now. And his consolidation is nowhere near done. He's trying, he's doing it, but it's not done yet. So, and meanwhile, he's getting less popular. And meanwhile, we're about to have a healthcare crisis that is staggering. When people start getting those bills, you guys, it's going to be wild. And I pray to God we don't get there. But literally, I'm not sure if you've been watching my videos about this, but the new estimate is that people's premiums will be going up by 114%. And that is before the ACA death spiral starts. And at that point, the rates just keep going higher and higher and higher. I'll talk about that in a second, but I don't want to freak you out right now. What I want to do is bolster you and remind you that our job right now, what Trump wants desperately, is for everybody to feel like, oh well, it's already done. He's already a dictator, and it's too late to stop him. He's got all the power. No, he doesn't. No, he does not. But God, does he want you to think so? He wants you to think that so badly, because then no one's going to show up on October 18th at the No Kings protest. No one's going to keep using their money to support companies that are standing up to him and to boycott companies that are not. Nobody's going to call their representatives. Nobody is going to demand that Congress come back to work and extend these healthcare subsidies. Everybody's just going to lie down. That's what he wants. He wants everybody to lie down, just like a lot of the colleges have done, a lot of the law firms have done. But the American people are different. They are not like those law firms. Some of them are. I mean, Trump's cult members, they lay down a long time ago and they can't get back up. It's like, I've fallen, but I can't get up. Yeah, that's your existential condition. But the rest of us, Americans, are actually really feisty and defiant. And as we saw, when you start coming after their free speech, there is a sudden, everybody comes together. And I mean, when have you ever seen people like me fighting next to people like, I don't know, Joe Rogan? And not that I was fighting next to him, bear in mind, because I can't stand that guy. And I don't like any of those podcasters. I have a real beef with them. But they were on the same page as all of us, right? Everybody was on that page. The Wall Street Journal was on that page. There were conservative publications that were on that page. There were libertarians that were on that page, because free speech is something that Americans consider to be inviolable. But remember, Trump can't do what he wants to do without taking it away. So he's deeply unpopular. This is not what most authoritarians are experiencing when they consolidate power. So people, hi Oslo the puppet. People allow, it's funny because on Facebook and YouTube they can't see you. There's a puppet on my TikTok. Very cute. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, but this is he is racing against time, is what I just read before I came on here. He's racing against time to try to complete his consolidation before his unpopularity becomes so severe that even the big corporations and the big institutions suddenly go, dude, you're like a little man behind a curtain. Fuck you. And that's really close to happening. We just saw it with Disney. Disney just made a calculation. Like, Donald Trump wants me to do one thing, but these people, by the way, did you guys hear 1.7 million subscriptions canceled in 4 days? Right? Like, pat yourself on the back for that. That's a really big deal. So corporations are starting to make that calculation. And y'all, the truth of the matter is that things are going to get way, way, way worse. Okay. So we have this healthcare crisis. Now I'm going to put a bookmark in that thought. I'm going to explain to you quickly this health insurance death spiral, because I want you to understand the stakes and why Democrats have actually drawn a line in the sand with this shutdown. Because, there are people who are like, man, I have friends who I love who have said to me this week, in a way, I just think the Democrats should let it all crash and burn. Well, like, this is what they voted for. Let it crash and burn. But Democrats are not willing to do that. And first of all, that is because Democrats, like some of them I can't stand. You guys know I've got my Democrats like Schumer and Jeffries, who I really want them to retire desperately, right? And then I've got ones I really love. And there's a lot in between. But one thing you can say for Democrats right now is that they are unified in fighting for these ACA premium tax extensions. And the reason is Democrats really are not willing to watch people die for political advantage. Now, you could say that makes them soft, but I am going to say that that makes them the party I want to be a member of. I understand they've got all kinds of flaws, but they really are not willing to say, fine, you guys just die. Because that's what's going to happen, you guys. People will die. But the other thing is they understand something because, lawmakers tend to be policy wonks. I'm going to lead you down a policy path for a second here. And I'm going to tell you right here, Republicans know this too. They just don't care. And you're going to be shocked, okay, when you hear this. So there is a thing called a healthcare or insurance death spiral. And if these ACA premiums are not extended, we are in real danger, real serious danger of entering such a death spiral. I just made a video about it. So if you are interested in what I say here, go back and watch that video because it's all there. So basically, what that means is that what's happening right now, right? So they're talking about the Republicans don't want to extend these tax credits, which means that everybody's premium is going to at least double and maybe more. So I made a video about that fact a couple days ago, and I was actually really shocked at how many people said, well, if that happens, I am dropping my plan. I have no choice. I'm going to drop my plan. So, and this is exactly what policymakers, Democrats, healthcare advocates are worried about. Because what starts to happen is if all the healthy people, the people who go, you know what, it's a risk, but like I'm not sick with anything right now, I'm going to gamble because I can't afford this. I'm going to drop my policy for now. So those people who are the healthier people drop their healthcare plan, right? They get off the ACA. Who's left on the ACA? Who is left in these plans? The sicker people, the older people, the people who cost insurance companies more. So then insurance companies go, well, shit, now I have to raise rates again. So they raise their rates higher. And more people leave the plan. The people who are like hanging on and thinking maybe I can afford this, they just go, no, now I definitely can't. And they leave. And so then you've got just the very sickest and oldest people still on the plan, and it gets more expensive. And what a death spiral means is that eventually it gets so expensive that, and so many people drop off that the coverage just goes away. There's just no coverage. This is a real thing. It is a real danger. And policymakers and healthcare people have been telling Republicans this is a huge danger with these premium tax credits. 24 million Americans use these premium credits, right? It's a lot of Americans. This can affect the entire ecosystem of our healthcare. So that is to say, this is not just going to affect people who have the Affordable Care Act, you guys. This affects everybody, right? Insurance pools start going away. There's less coverage. The ones that are left get more expensive for everybody. And guess what else happens? This is in my video too. So if these premium tax credits go away, the healthcare industry providers are going to lose tens of billions of dollars next year alone. So then you start to see providers going out of business. Guess what? Rural hospitals, which are already in danger because of the Medicaid cuts, start to shut down. So you could literally find yourself in a situation where your rural hospital is gone, you have no hospital in your area at all, and you have no healthcare coverage in your area left. Like nobody insures people who live where you live. This is what Republicans are choosing for us because they don't want to raise taxes on Elon Musk. And like, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not saying this with spin. This is the simple fact. And if you don't believe me, go look at Kaiser Family Foundation. They're nonpartisan. They talk about all of this. Watch my video. I can send you a bunch of emails. Like, this is out there. It's very easy to find. So all of this is to say, going back to our bookmark, that Republicans are setting our country up for catastrophic, failure in healthcare with inflation. Who was I reading about? Was it Maduro? One of the authoritarians I was reading about right now. Insurance in their country, their prices have gone up 500%, right? Because once you're an authoritarian, what do you care? You don't care about bringing prices down. You don't have to. You're not accountable. And this is what we see happen. People live in misery in authoritarian countries. Look at Russia. Look at Putin. How many hundreds of thousands of people have died in his war? He doesn't care, right? So we have that. We have healthcare. We have our utility prices, which are insane and going to become much more insane. We have the healthcare crisis, which we are teetering on the edge of, like measles making a full return, rubella, whooping cough, things we haven't had in decades and sometimes centuries making a return. Another pandemic comes, RFK is in charge. Very bad, right? Our food is not being inspected at nearly the rates that it should be. Like they have slashed our food inspection to the bone. That could be a catastrophe. Our air and water is getting dirtier every day because they've gotten rid of every single thing that was keeping our air and water clean for our kids and for us. So, all of this together, and then the attacks on free speech, and then these heinous attacks on immigrant populations, unspeakable. Like, Nazi level, unspeakable. I'm sorry, TikTok, if you don't like that, and I know you don't. The NOAA, right? Our weather. Oh, thank you. Exactly. Someone just reminded me in the comments. Thank you. I think. The NOAA, climate change. Ah, God! I just read this week that Donald Trump just said that he is going to give $650 million to boost coal. Like, you can't make this stuff up. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to really feel like he is being paid by somebody to destroy our country, to literally sicken us all, and also set us back economically while the rest of the world is bounding ahead on clean energy, bounding ahead. And we're back here with the horse and buggy, dragging ourselves back to coal, which is not, by the way, all the money he puts into it will be lost because you can't bring coal back. And also, even were you to, it just makes people sick. Like it'll make our kids sick. Coal ash is sickening, right? All of that is to say, Trump is not going to get more popular. There is no world in which he gets more popular. This is his high mark right here. So he's going to keep getting less and less popular, and Americans are going to keep getting more and more emboldened. And you are, because I'm telling you, we must. It is so vitally important that we remember the little man behind the curtain and the fact that he's failing at everything that he's doing means he's actually not well positioned to become a full authoritarian at all. Now, he is racing to consolidate his power before everybody figures that out. So, what I want to empower you all to do is to know it now. You don't have to figure it out. I am telling you now. And I'm not the only one. Paul Krugman is saying it. Heather Cox Richardson has been saying it. Robert Hubble. Lots of people have been saying this. Oh my God, there's a content creator I love so much, and it's oh my God, Amanda's Mild Takes. Love her. Follow her if you're not. She's been saying this over and over again. This guy is failing. This is a man who released an AI video last night of him singing The Reaper. Like, how sad. Oh, it's so embarrassing. My kids saw that and they were like, I'm so fucking embarrassed for him. Holy shit. It's embarrassing. But this is who he is. And so it is our job to be strong, you guys. I know it's really, really hard. I'm going to remind you all, I don't know, a lot of you may not know, some of you may, some of you don't, that I have a newsletter, right? It's a daily actions newsletter. It comes out, well, it comes out 4 weekdays. And then on Sundays, I send out a good news list with call scripts. During the week, I give you call scripts. I tell you about protests that are coming up. I tell you about meetings, Zoom meetings where we're all getting together to talk about healthcare or whatever. I really want to encourage you to get activated now, to engage. And I'll tell you a secret. You will feel so much better. You will find your depression and your anxiety cracking a little bit and your feeling of empowerment growing. And the more you do, and I'm talking little actions, you guys, put a sign in your front yard that says, fuck ice or whatever, no ice if you don't want to curse. Go to a food bank and see if they need a volunteer because Trump just cut another $500 million in funding for food banks at a time when hunger rates are surging. And he also just killed the agency that measures hunger in our country. And then the SNAP benefit cuts are about to kick like 4 million people off of SNAP. So we're about to see a huge resurgence in hunger in our country. So volunteer for a food bank or see if you can raise some money for one. Call your representatives. Definitely see how you can help an immigrants' rights organization. If you live in a place that's being targeted, volunteer. There are patrols. If you're a white person, if you're a privileged white person, if you're a middle-aged lady like me, volunteer. You have a lot of privilege. You have a lot of ability to go out there and trust that you're pretty likely to be safe. I mean, ICE is insane, but we got to use our privilege. Do what you can. And you guys, okay, this is the end of my lecture. We're almost done, like 2 more minutes. Remember, okay, we have, you guys know what I'm going to say. Shannon has heard this a million times, but I'm going to say it again. We have spectacularly important elections coming up in November, possibly the most important elections we've ever seen in our country, because they are going to be a bellwether for what happens next year. And they're going to be yet another chink in Donald Trump's armor, right? I've been talking about how people are starting to see how weak he is. And every time Democrats overperform in a special election, it's another sign to Republicans like, this guy is bringing you down. He is a dead weight tied to your ankle, and you are in the ocean. So these elections in November, we have to win. I don't even know how to tell you how existentially important. Like, if you want to do something to humiliate Trump and harm his chances of consolidating his takeover, help us win these races. So again, I repeat this over and over again, but I'm just going to keep doing it. You've got New York City, Zoran Mamdani, who I feel really good about. I think he's going to win. Like, that race is actually the one I'm least worried about, but if you live there, you should definitely volunteer for him. We've got Virginia. Okay, we have got to win these Virginia elections. And I am talking about governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. We've got great candidates for all of those seats. State legislature, you guys. If we've come to see now what happens when Republicans take over state legislatures. They give in to Trump, they do whatever he wants, they allow ICE to come in and terrorize people, they attack transgender people, they get rid of climate laws, they make voting harder to do. So state legislatures are hugely important. In Virginia, their big state legislature elections are in November. Democrats have a tiny majority in both chambers. We want to keep it and expand it so that blue governor, Abigail Spanberger, when she wins, can pass good policy and stand up to Trump. So she can be another bulwark against Trump, just like J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom. She's tough. She's good. Okay, so that's Virginia. So we've got New York, Virginia. Number 3, New Jersey. This Jack Ciattarelli guy who's running for governor is bad, you guys. He's so bad. Not only did he say in a video that I want to make a video about this week that, yeah, we're going to raise taxes in New Jersey, but not on millionaires. You can't tax the millionaires because they're the ones, providing the work for everybody else. Like, who says that out loud in this day and age? But he said it. And then, like, a couple days ago, I saw a video of him basically, like, someone said, "Are you going to work to protect Black and brown people?" And he said, "Next question." Like, this guy's cartoon villain, bad, and he's running against Mikey Sherrill, who's great. I've interviewed her. She's great. So again, New Jersey, we've got the governor's race, lieutenant governor, and state legislature. Please, please, please. Someone said, how can we help if we don't live in those states? Every one of those races has phone banking. They have postcarding. They have door knocking if you live there. But if you don't, go to postcards for swing states, you guys. Postcards to swing states. Just Google it. Postcards to swing states. They are still sending out postcards for all of these races. They will send you free postcards. You will write them and you will mail them at the end of this month. You can do that. Vote Forward still has letters they need people to send. Or you can contact the campaigns and say, I want a phone bank for you. It should be an easy lift right now. Or sign up for my newsletter. I'll give you a million ways to help. So wait, I'm not quite done yet. So we've got, what do we have so far? We have New York City, we have Virginia, we have New Jersey. 2 more to go, and these are probably the most important ones. And for one of them, at least, no one's talking about. Pennsylvania, Supreme Court retention. Okay, we have 3 liberal Supreme Court justices that are running for retention. That means basically all you're voting on the ballot is, do you want to keep them or not? And Republicans are they'll probably spend $100 million trying to get them pulled so that they can flip this court. And guess what happens if they flip the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania? Very bad things for elections. So if you know people in Pennsylvania, or if you are there, tell them, please pay attention to the Supreme Court retention race. Please make sure you are doing the research to make sure you know what you're doing. Vote to retain these people. They're good justices. And if we lose them, that's a very bad thing. So that's your number 4, Pennsylvania. And then number 5 is the California Proposition 50, which if we lose again, it's a very, very bad thing. Text your friends if you live there. Volunteer for a canvas text your friends if you don't live there. If you live there, volunteer for a canvas. Volunteer for a phone bank. We just need people to know the stakes. Again, this is a special election, so our side is going to be more galvanized, we hope, but also remember that Republicans are spending minimum $100 million. There is one Republican billionaire who has already donated $30 million to this election because they know that if we lose on Prop 50, it is way more likely that we can't flip the House next year. That would be catastrophic, right? So those are your 5 elections: New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California. Just ask yourself, which one am I helping with? Do you hate everything happening right now? Good. Then help with one of those elections. Just help. Postcards to swing states, vote forward, or subscribe to my newsletter, Chop Wood, Carry Water, Daily Actions, and I will give you stuff to do. Thank you guys. Thank you for being on it. And again, I'll be back next week for another live. I know this is really hard. I know there's a lot of really scary stuff happening. What I try to do that really helps me is, instead of feeling like I'm fighting the bad guys all the time, I really try to look for the helpers and help them. So there's all kinds of people out there doing amazing stuff to help undocumented people, to help immigrants, to help the LGBTQ community, to help win elections. Find one of them and say, how can I help you? How can I help you? And in general, you guys, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I'm just going to tell you because it's true. My mom asked me this week, as a matter of fact, how do you stay so upbeat? And the way I stay so upbeat is I stay in action. I look for who I can help, because as long as I am in a helping stance, if I am in a stance of love and service, I can find my power and be okay. There will always be someone to help you guys. There will always be someone to love. So when in doubt, when I start to feel fear, I know that I'm back in sort of like inward selfness. I go and I look for someone to help, or I look for something to do, or I sign up for a phone bank. I get busy and I turn outwards and look for how I can help contribute to a win for the side of justice. And as Heather Booth says, my wonderful idol, when we organize with love at the center, we win. It takes time sometimes, but in the end, we win, and we will win. All right. So I'll be back next week. Message me if you need help with anything this week, but just know that, like, I'm not quitting. You're not quitting. We're going to get through this. We will outlast these people. We will. Because ultimately, hate and fear are unsustainable. They burn everything in their path until there's no fuel left. But love sustains itself. And so does justice, and so does service. So let's try to do those things. Shannon, thank you for your wonderful moderation. Thank you all for being here. And I will talk to you soon. I'll post recordings of this on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks.